These are print and cut Christmas present labels that I made using my Silhouette Cameo and Silhouette Design Studio. I'll show you how I did this in the video, so let's get started. The first thing we'll need to do is get set up in Silhouette Studio. I'm using Designer Edition, but this will also work in Basic Edition as well. And so you can see the basic setup here. You got your virtual cutting mat with your grids on top, and this is a representation of your physical cutting mat. The white area is basically where the cuttable media area will be, and we'll adjust that here in just a second. So because we're going to be printing, and we're going to be printing on an 8.5 by 11 sheet, we have to do a couple of things to set up. And so here on the page setup menu, and if this doesn't show up on your main menu right now, you can click this little icon that looks like a piece of paper with a folded bottom right corner, and it will bring up your page setup menu. So in here, when you go into here, you'll see 1, 2, and 3 machine, cutting mat, and media size. And so the first thing you want to do here is in number 1, select your machine. I'm using a Silhouette Cameo 3, so that's what I have selected. It's already selected at auto because it recognizes I have a Cameo 3. Now, cutting mat, we will be using a cutting mat, is this 12 by 12, which is what I have. But if you're using a different size, you can pick whichever size you want if you're using a Silhouette branded one, or you could put in a custom size one as well. I'm using a 12 by 12, so that's what I've selected. And then the media size, we're going to be using sticker paper, vinyl sticker paper, printable, that is in a letter size, which is 8.5 inches by 11 inches. So I'm going to select that one. If you're using a different size, go ahead and select whatever is appropriate or put in your custom size. And you can see by switching here into letter, it has changed the size of the media area accordingly to an 8.5 by 11 representation of a sheet. And so this is also on this virtual cutting mat, the orientation of where we would actually put the physical paper on our cutting mat. So I like to just go ahead and turn off this grid. For right now, it's kind of in the way or makes it look real busy. So I just like to right click inside this white area, and you'll see this menu pop up, and you can hit hide grid. Now you can see here, there's this red border around the edge, and that's your cut border. As I understand it, you don't want to put any graphics outside of this because your machine will not be able to cut out that area, and it's so close to the edge anyway, you don't want to be doing that. And then your print border is, as I understand it, the area that you need to keep any graphics that you're going to put into your media inside there, because otherwise it won't print outside of this area. That's just as I understand it. The next thing we'll need to do, because we're going to have our machine cut this, is we have to put registration marks on it so that it can orient, our Cameo can orient itself to be able to cut things appropriately. And so here under the page setup menu, I just click this registration marks tab right there, and then you click that on. And you can see now I created this square, this inverted L, and this inverted L here with some crosshatch looking marks here. You can just leave this as default, but you can also change certain things if you wanted to. I think this just makes it bigger or smaller for your machine to be able to try to scan. And so you can see I try to keep stuff out of this gray crosshatch area. You can see this is basically going to be the area. Your cut area has gotten smaller now. You want to be able to keep everything within this area right here. And so that basically gets us all set up. And so the next thing we have to do is bring in the images that you want to have, or you can just go ahead and create your own by, for example, we want to make a simple rectangle kind of graphic. You can do under drawing tools, you can draw a rectangle or whatever size you want. Let's make it 2.25 by 5 inches. And then what you can do is pick some letters, and I selected here the text. Then you go here under your text style, and then you can pick your letters. Let's look for something that's kind of neat and fancy. Scroll. Let's pick something like this. Okay, and then so Edwardian script. And so here, I'm going to click inside of this, and I'm going to say to, and then from. And that's just a quick and easy, simple label kind of thing. So I'm going to click out of it now because you see that it's in a green box, and that's your text typing box. So if I click out of it, you can see it's like that. Now what we can do here is your script, which is now, if you don't double click it, it's just like as a regular object. And what we can do here is you can try to group the two together and then align them however you want to. So if you did something like this, it's just going to push everything off to the side like that. And then you can also level it by using this function here, which is kind of your alignment tool. You can level that align it into the middle. And so these two kind of align themselves into each other here. And then if you want to move this over, you can just click it and then you can use your arrow key and move it over just a little bit. And so quick and easy, super simple in that case. You can also select the lettering in this case and pick a color from your color palette. And then let's just go with black. We'll make that nice and simple. And then here we can just group them together now to create basically a label. And then we can resize this. Let's not make it 5 inches. Let's go ahead and make this. Actually, before we do that, let's right click this and convert it to a path. That way now it's an object that we can change the parameters on right here, which is going to be your width and your height parameters. And right now the ratios are locked. So if we change one of these parameters, let's change the height to 1.5 inches. You'll see when I hit enter, it changes the width as well in a ratio so that they remain the same. And so what will happen here is when we print this, it's just going to print this black to and from. It won't print any of these red lines here. But those red lines are essentially showing you where your machine will cut. Now, the Cameo is not a printer. It is a cutting machine. It can sketch if you select sketch pens and then put in your sketch pen, but we are going to be printing here. So, okay. So I kind of went off on a little bit of a rabbit hole there, but let's do a version where we're actually going to bring in some images that we want to use as our printing labels. Okay, so here you can see I brought in an image that I just found off of the internet. It was actually from like a free printables or something like that. And so we're going to be printing it since you can print it at home, but also we're going to be using our Cameo to cut this out so you don't have to manually cut these out. So anyway, in order to do so, if you just tried to send this to cut now, for example, it won't cut each of these individual squares because you can see it's a single solid image. So if we went to hit send, and we selected the item and went to, let's switch this from sketch to cut, you can see this red line here is just going to cut a giant square out. It's not going to cut each of these individually. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to allow your Silhouette to recognize each of these individual things by tracing and detaching them. And so the way to do that is what I'll do is I'll make this a little bit bigger for now. And so how you'll do this is in your menu here, open the trace panel. It kind of looks like a butterfly. Click that, and then you'll want to select this trace area. Okay, and then it changes your cursor into like a little cross here, as you can see here. And so what you'll want to do is then just highlight the traceable area, and so make sure you capture everything that needs to be captured, and you can see that the things that were in color are now yellow. And so here you'll want to adjust your threshold, and I messed with this just a little bit earlier, so I know that 99 to 100 is going to be the threshold you want. So if you go 99, that takes away a little bit. 100 is fully yellow, as you can see. And then once you're satisfied everything has been captured by the yellow, which is what that's doing, it's covering everything that you're going to trace out. What we're going to do next is hit this trace and detach. So if I click this, computer will think for a second. It's going to calculate, and then now it looks like nothing has happened. But what has happened is I have traced out each of the things that were yellow and detached it from its background, this white little background here. So I'm going to highlight that and just delete it. And then you may notice that each of these are individual little tags now. So just put that back to where it was. What I'm going to do then is I'm just going to group them all together by highlighting across all of them, which groups them all like that. Hit group, so that way now they all move as one group. And then what I can do is if I'm happy with the size, then what I can do is put it just on the sheet. I might actually even have a little bit of space to replicate at least one more here. So let me right click this and then ungroup. And so now each of these are individual, and I'm going to highlight these two down here. And then I'm going to hold my control button and press my arrow down button. Control, arrow down, and you can see it just replicated below. If I held the arrow, that indicates where it wants to replicate what you have highlighted, and because I pressed arrow down, it went down. And so now I'm just going to give it a little bit more space. And so now I just made myself a little extra sheet there. And so if I'm happy with the size, which I am, which is fine, what I can do now is I'll go ahead and I'm going to highlight all these and regroup them so that if I move it, it's kind of all together. So what I'm going to do here, just to kind of customize it a little bit, is I'm going to put some text, just like we had in here, into here. And so what I'll do is actually I will click in my text over here on the right side, text, bring up my text style menu. And then I'm going to go and then on here on the left side, click the function for my text to activate this area here. And I think there's like a kind of fancier one. I think it's called like autumn or something. No, October. So let's use this freestyle script here. All right. And then so what I'm going to do is off to the side, I'm going to click here. So I have my text cursor showing. And so I'm going to write to and then colon, and then I'll press return and then from colon. All right, and then what I'm going to do is I'm just highlight that and I'm going to color it just so it's easier to see. And I'm going to make it black, and then I'm going to go ahead and just make the line around it black as well. That way it's fully black. And then I'm going to resize this like this, and then I'm going to right click and then convert it to a path. And now I can't, even if I double click it, I can't change it in the sense that I can't retype it. If I want to retype it, I have to undo or start it over again. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to see how this fits here for how I want to put it. I'm going to resize this so it fits a little bit better in here. And I'm doing black so that it contrasts against the the labels that we made. And I'm just going to position it right there. And then because I like it, that actually looks pretty good to me. So I'm just going to copy that, and then I'm going to paste, and then I'm going to drag this one to, let's put this one like here. And I'm going to make this one just slightly smaller. Like that. Oh, that's too small, I think. So I'm just going to leave that as it is. With the black, it contrasts against this. So now what I'm going to do is, this is kind of a step backwards. Maybe I should have just done this first, but I'm going to right click and I'm going to ungroup this. And then because it's all ungrouped, I'm going to grab everything below those two that I just made, and I'm going to delete them. And then these two, what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab everything that's in there by highlighting, and then I'm going to group those. That way it's all one unit in a sense. And then now I'm going to replicate those down. That way I don't have to try to make and put each individual to from in there. So I'm going to move this down just a bit, move this down, and then I'm going to select all these, and I'm just going to evenly space them in this alignment tool here. You can select this spacing section, and it kind of puts an even gap between everything there. Let's go ahead and print out our labels to our printer. Again, the Cameo is not a printing machine. It is a cutting machine or a sketching machine. And we're going to be printing and then using the Cameo to cut later. So to print it, you'll go to File and then Print, or just Control P. It will bring up this menu here, and you can kind of preview and see what, you got your registration marks, you got your labels, etc., etc. This is what it's going to look like. So I hit print, and yours may do something slightly different. Whenever I hit print, mine initially brings up these two menus. For this one, I ignore this one for now. What I do is I go here, and then you'll see if you use Microsoft Word or whatever else and you hit print, you'll see a similar menu like this. Go into your printer preferences. And then once you go into your printer preferences, you'll have to make some adjustments here. You can see mine has some standard or commonly used settings, and I'll just adjust this here. And so yours may be slightly different, but it should be about the same general concept. And so within whatever printer that you have, I always like to have borderless. I'm not going to do black and white, and I'm not going to adjust the color, so I'm not going to mess with any of that. But my media type, I'm going to select by clicking this drop-down menu, and I'm using photo papers because that's what I use for sticker paper. And then you see if I click in here, I have another menu, and we're going to be using matte photo paper. So I'm just going to select matte photo paper. I find matte is easier to write with pen or markers than your glossy ones, which the ink just tends to float right on top of the gloss. Matte, it actually absorbs in basically like regular paper. So I always select matte photo paper, and that's what we'll be using is going to be actually matte sticker paper. Print quality, I just want standard. You can go high definition or high quality if you want, if your printer offers that, or if you want to have maybe crisper, sharper images. Let's say you're using higher quality images than these basic ones here, but standard is fine. Remember, we're using an 8.5 by 11 sheet, so printer paper size will be 8.5 by 11, and then make sure you pick the correct source that your printer will take the material from. And then once you have all that, you can click OK and then hit apply, so that those are your settings for this print. Now, before you actually hit print, go ahead and load up your printer, but also make sure that when you're putting in sticker paper, you have the sticker paper oriented in your printer correctly so that it prints on the sticker side, not the backing side. I know for this matte sticker paper I have, the back kind of looks like the front, and I had loaded it wrong, so I printed on the back of the sticker sheet. So that was kind of a waste. So make sure that you have it oriented correctly. And when you do, and you're ready to go, then you can go ahead and hit print. All right, so my printer has finished printing out the stickers. And as you can see, it got the to and the from on there printed out nicely. And then the actual images of the labels that we had made. You got your registration marks here. So the next thing we need to do is get this loaded up onto our cutting mat. So here's my cutting mat here. I'm just using this older one here. It's not quite as sticky as a new one because I don't want it sticking too hard. So I'm just going to go and align this on our physical cutting mat, just like we had it on our virtual cutting mat, which means along the left side and the top parallel to each other. And then this is how it's going to be fed into your Silhouette Cameo. So just make sure that's pressed down lightly and firmly and smoothly and evenly, and go ahead and load that up into your Cameo. So I've hit send on the Silhouette Studio, and now Cameo is registering those registration marks. You kind of see the little red light that is shining across the L. It did that square up there first. Now it's going across that other L up there, scanning the area so I can see where it is relative to the paper. And then from there, what it's going to try to do is get set up as far as setting its blade depth, which it's doing right now, to the settings that we set on Silhouette Studio. And then it will, once it's all ready to go, it will start cutting out our stickers. And we have it just to cut around the edges so that we can peel away this excess white around there. So we'll let the Cameo do its thing. So the Cameo has finished cutting out our stickers here, and so it's still on the mat. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is just go ahead and peel away the excess white vinyl that's not going to be needed or necessary for the actual peeling labels of stickers. And so now I can take this off of the cutting mat itself. So now you have a whole sheet of labels that you've been able to make yourself at home without having to buy them out at the store. So Christmas labels that you can make at home for your own projects, and it could be any kind of labels: Christmas, address labels, Easter, birthdays, whatever. So you're able to make customized ones that you like with your own personal style and flair to it as well, using your Silhouette Cameo and Silhouette Design Studio.